It's time to hand out 2024 Fantasy Baseball Awards. Up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Thursday, October 3rd. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White, and we are going to run through some 2024 Fantasy Baseball Awards. Scott has 40 of them on the site, so make sure to check that out at cbssports.com. But Scott, let's just jump right in with the most valuable pitcher.
Seth Lugo, and I want to stress the emphasis here is on the word value. There were better pitchers in 2024, but not many. He ended up being the 6th best in 5x5 scoring, the 5th best in point scoring, and that was after being drafted 282nd overall. It wasn't a big strikeout guy. The ERA estimators all say he overachieved, but when it looked like he was beginning to slide early in the second half, he recovered nicely with a 2.08 ERA in his final 6 starts, and it was an unexpected ace this year, Seth Lugo.
Peripheral stats don't buy it for Seth Lugo, but he has made 59 starts since the beginning of 2023. During that span, 3.24 ERA, 1.14 WHIP for Seth Lugo. Scott, over to the most valuable hitter, which goes to
Brent Rooker. He was drafted 260th overall and ended up being a top 20 performer in fantasy. Top 10, if you look at the way some sites value the different roto categories. And a big reason for that is he maintained a 293 batting average. There wasn't a lot of up and down with it. He was a surprisingly good source of batting average, contributed the power we saw last year. The strikeout rate actually lowered over the course of the year. He started to look better and better. Ended up being a total stud. This 29-year-old cast off from multiple organizations. He has solid footing in fantasy now.
And we will have questions for Brent Rooker entering 2025. 29-year-old breakout. How will the new A's ballpark play? They'll be playing in a minor league ballpark in Sacramento. Plus, he's utility only on CBS. That is Brent Rooker. Scott, let's talk about some of the best comebacks this past season. Both the hitter and pitcher awards go to...
The hitter is Vladimir Guerrero. The pitcher is Jack Flaherty. Guerrero was the number 1 overall player in 2021. And of course, in the 2 years that followed, underperformed, especially with regard to batting average. Well, this year he ended up hitting 323, including 345 from May 1st on, back to being the top first baseman in fantasy, first-round pick in all likelihood next year. And then Jack Flaherty, I think, is an even more obvious choice for this comeback category. People basically wrote him off after 2023 because the long wait through various injuries, he showed in that 2023 season that he was not anything close to the ace we saw in 2019. But then there were some good reports coming out of Tigers camp this spring and renewed enthusiasm, and he lived up to it. 13-7 record, 3.17 ERA, 1.07 WHIP, well more than a strikeout per inning.
Yeah, and Jack Flaherty played on a 1-year deal this past season. It'll be very interesting to see which team he winds up with, and what does that contract look like for Jack Flaherty this offseason. Let's get to the fakeout awards, Scott. Both the hitter and pitcher. Phillies fans not going to be happy with this.
Alec Bohm and Ranger Suarez. If you think back to April, nobody was hitting except Alec Bohm. He hit 366 with 4 homers, 1036 OPS. Everybody was convinced he was a stud all of a sudden. But from May 1st on, he hit 258 with 11 homers and a 713 OPS. And if you look at the full season stat line for Alec Bohm, it's basically what it always is. So he's not a stud. He's pretty good, but he's not a stud. Ranger Suarez looked like the second coming of Greg Maddux the first 3 months through June 29th and a 1.83 ERA. But then he went over his final 11 starts. He had a 6.54 ERA, and only one of those 11 starts went even 6 innings. So he was basically useless over the final 3 months, Ranger Suarez. Final numbers ended up looking pretty normal for him, too.
All right, let's get into a few fun ones here, Scott. Not necessarily the best names, but the biggest weirdo award goes to
Tyler Fitzgerald. Basically, the player who was toughest to figure out by our usual evaluation standards. Fitzgerald Great source of power and speed from the time he took over as the Giants shortstop. Even though 22nd percentile average exit velocity, 4th percentile strikeout rate. Normally for a hitter to be good, he's got to be good at one of those things, either hitting the ball hard or hitting the ball often, if not both. But Fitzgerald wasn't good at either and ended up performing like a must-start player regardless. I still think there's a lot of reason for skepticism. It reminds me sort of Zach Geloff's rookie season. We saw how much he fell off as a sophomore.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, we have the biggest heel turn award, literally, which goes to...
You're giving away the joke with that literally, but yes, it's Luis Heel. Biggest heel turn. He played the role of hero. First 12 starts, 182 ERA, 0.92 whip, 11 K per 9. And that gave him a strong enough foundation that he's probably going to win AL Rookie of the Year. But compared to those first 12 starts, the final 17, Luis Heel, total villain, 492 ERA, 142 whip, just 9.4 K per 9. For the year, he also led the majors with 77 walks. So I'd say overall, this is still a pretty flawed profile.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again on Saturday. Bye-bye.